Hey guys, Coach Kone here, and in this video I'm going to be sharing my top tips for buying the right running shoe. Alright guys, so let's get into it. Now there's a lot of factors to take into consideration when we're buying a running shoe. We're all different and every shoe is different. Alright, so as I said, the factors that we have to take in consideration is your weight, height, do you have injuries, do you pronate, and all those things. So, but what I look at for a healthy foot and a healthy runner is I want something that is flexible sideways, all right? And I want something where the bridge of the shoe can break. Now, what I'm always very cautious of is the shoes with the big build-ups over here. It's a great theory and it will assist those runners with say a very weak foot where you're pronating. That actually includes me. I've got a proper pronation in my foot and I'm a heavier runner. So that puts a lot of force on the inside of the foot, and that energy then gets channeled up, possibly causing plantar fasciitis issues, possibly causing ACL issues. So however, I moved away from using those kind of shoes for the reason that if you got a support in there, the foot just gets weaker and weaker and weaker. It never gets time to build up and get stronger. And so I actually made the shift and slowly converted into a shoe that's more natural. And it's really been the best thing that I could have done. And I would recommend it to you as well. But do take your time. Don't just shift over in 3 weeks and there you go. Take your time. It can take up to 6 months, even up to a year to transition into a more natural shoe. So number one, flexibility. So I want to look at the flexibility of the shoe, how it can move. This is an example of my road running shoe, which can completely move over like that, which I really enjoy. All right, so that's number one. Now, another thing that's great about removing, for instance, this build-up over here and getting to a more natural shoe is that they're naturally much lighter. So tip number two, I would say, is look for a shoe that's nice and light, because that weight on your feet is definitely going to make a nice difference in terms of how you feel when you run. It's the same thing as running on the road and suddenly running on grass. You can just feel it's much tougher to get your foot out of the grass, and you feel slower, so you're enjoying it less. Well, not always, but it's tougher anyway. So tip number two is going for a lighter shoe. Tip number three is I prefer shoes with a 5 to 8 millimeter heel drop. So what I do is when I get to the running shop, the shoe shop, is I actually Google, say I don't know the shoe, how many millimeter drop is at the back compared to the front. So you normally call this a heel drop. And for me, the juice is in 5 to say 8 millimeters. There's some shoes that works for me at 3 millimeters, and the reason I don't go for the other ones, you got shoes that goes up to 0, and some of them are fantastic, and I've enjoyed some of those shoes. However, for the majority, for the general runner, most of us are going to go to work, and normally when we go to work, we got a shoe that's got a little bit of a heel at the back. Now, what this does is that little bit of a heel creates the ankle to be in a little bit more of a relaxed state, and which means the calf, I'm just using my arm as an example by the way, means the calf is also a little bit more relaxed. So now if you suddenly drop down to a 0, your calf and Achilles really taking a lot of strain because it's not used to that. It's not used to being in that shoe the whole time. At that it's not used to being at a 0 degree drop. So, but if you're a guy that's in flip-flops and barefoot, that might be a perfect shoe for you. But for me personally, I feel that 0 drop is not worth the risk for majority of people anyway. But there is some great shoes. The other option most people go for, or the general shoe you see out there, is 16 to 20. Now, let's come back to why this millimeter drops is also important besides just injuries, and that is because of the heel strike. So if you got a 16 to 20 millimeter heel drop, those shoes normally tend to be a little bit heavy. They also tend to promote a heel strike in your gait. Now, that is important because if you're heel striking, generally, not everybody, some people know how to heel strike properly. Look at Paula Radcliffe, Olympic winner, gold medalist, and she can run, right? And she's got a slight heel strike when I look at some of the videos, but she does it with a bent knee, so and she's got the momentum to move over that knee, so it really doesn't bother her. But for the majority of runners, they normally do a big heel strike, and there's a lot of energy that comes back into the body and actually breaks us. So normally we say anything that lands in front of the body is a break, and anything mid to the middle of the body and backwards is going to accelerate you, which makes sense, right? So what we're trying to look for is a mid-foot strike to a forefoot strike. Mid-foot to forefoot. I normally hit your mid-foot about, sometimes a little bit of a heel strike, but it's light. So if you got a 5 millimeter or a 7 millimeter or a 3 millimeter, whichever you're comfortable with, it will promote that you drop with your foot a little bit more to the front or to the middle and the front, which is again going to give you more acceleration. That means you're going to get more out of your shoe and you're going to enjoy it more, and it's going to give you the support you want. All right, those are really my base tips. So those couple things. So we're looking at flexibility in the shoe, we're looking at the weight of the shoe, we're looking at the heel drop of the shoe. Those are the three kind of things that I like looking at. Then, besides that, there's preference tips. Okay, so you want to look at how wide the shoe is. Do you have a wide foot or a narrow foot? So some shoes really you want to get in so badly, but the shoe is just too narrow for you. So that's something you want to look at. Another thing you want to look at is the material that the shoe is being made of, and how thick the padding over here could be. Now, this is the Hoka 1. One of my go-to shoes, and why I enjoy the shoe is actually the one main reason is it's a durable shoe. It's lasting, and it seems to be lasting very long compared, this is not for trail running, compared to other shoes. Because what I find with the trail running shoes is I run through shoes so quickly, they tear up all over. But what I find with this shoe, although it's got holes that you can see it's been used, this shoe's lasted very long compared to other shoes. So I use this shoe mainly for like rugged terrain, training and so forth. But I got another shoe which I prefer running with in competitions. But with this shoe you can see there's a little bit of a slicker, a thinner material here. So if I hit the water, say I run through a river or something like that, it seems to drain very quickly. But my other shoe, my favorite shoe actually, the Saucony Peregrine, it's got a thicker material, great shoe, obviously I love it, but it seems to drain much slower or get dry much slower. So you want to take in consideration where you're going to be running and the terrain you're going to be running at. You also, obviously, if you're looking at trail, want to look at the bottom of the shoe. How's the track? What materials being used? Some materials stick better to rocks. Some materials stick better to river rocks and slippery stuff. Some best to mud. This shoe I find is all purposes. It's generally really good. Where the Saucony, for instance, is great with like stepping into like loose stuff, mud, rocks. It's got a bit of a wider thing, foot at the bottom, and it's great with like if I go over rocks, it just sort of swallows the rocks up. So that's great. So you need to know what your preference is. Now, another thing that I like looking at is, for instance, this shoe. I've had a couple of these and I've done thousands of kilometers in them. Because of the less technology, there's not much that can go wrong. There's a little bit, but not much. I do change them every now and then, but I mean, I get a couple of thousand, maybe 3,000-4,000 kilometers, if not more kilometers out of a shoe like this. What I love about this shoe is the upper lasts forever. And as you can see, I normally get the holes in the front of the shoe. It's one of those things, I always get them. It doesn't matter what I do. So, but in the Nike Free Runner, I never get that. All right. So those are a couple of things you want to look at. We can get into more detail on the kind of material that's used on the lace, but I think it's unnecessary for most parts. Some laces, like this lace, ties up nice and easy. It's also, you want to get these nice and thin ones like that, not the thick material laces, because again they loosen up when you go through water, and these kind of laces are nice and thin, and they go. Another thing for the road runners, especially in South Africa, is when you're looking at a race like Comrades, where or even Two Oceans, or any of these road runs that's early in the morning, or there's going to be big water points with water on the road. The only downside on the shoe, for instance, is that I find it doesn't have as much grip. But on the road, generally you don't need as much, but you do feel a little bit if you're running something like an ultra marathon, Comrades, and so forth. One more thing that I like looking at is this shoe over here is a hard shoe. That is the reason why this is not, for instance, my favorite shoe at the moment to race with anyways, because I'm a heavier runner. I like doing long distance running. So this shoe, I find this a little bit harder, a little bit looser inside. I love getting something with the ISO strip inside. They are fantastic. Sometimes I even take it from my old shoes and put the ISO strip in my new shoes, because it just makes it such a nice ride. So you want to look at how hard the shoe is and if your foot is really enjoying the ride. So I prefer going for something where I enjoy the ride more than just performance. So guys, I hope that helped out. I went into a little bit of detail, a little bit more detail than I wanted to, but these are questions that people's asking me all the time, and I hope it helped. Please feel free to comment below if you've got any questions or suggestions, or you feel I've missed anything, and I'll get right into it and get back to you with the answers. Great stuff, guys. Enjoy your running, have fun, and yeah, see you on the road.